Yeah, sure.
Okay. The exhibit is, since we're in an art gallery, we wanted some content that would relate the electronics to some sort of a central theme, and our theme is basically an artist in their apartment that's a traditional artist surrounded by technology and kind of maybe in contemplation of it and how it can work as artistic media and, you know, how to best approach it. So we've got a bed, and we've got these sort of neon sign looking EL wire arrangements of a person shifting positions on their bed as they think about things. And they're in contemplation with their hands behind their head, and then they go to sleep, and then the final position is a sort of a fetal position as they're dreaming. And we got the bed from campus housing. Anita Cuchero over there lent us a dorm bed, which we thought was kind of nice because it got a little bit more of a connection to the students. The dinner party, the artist has invited some people over. One of them didn't show up, and they're having a dinner party. And a student, Tatiana Meyer, actually came up with the video of the food. She actually she prepared the meals, and she and her friends ate while she videoed one at a time. And we decided we'd kind of have these metaphors of the computer screens as placemats and silverware and plates. And then the tags, there was sort of a dual purpose here. It's kind of the old world way of doing installations. A lot of people use things dangling from the ceiling in art installation pieces, and it also was a way for us to integrate more students in the collaboration, more art students that may not be technologically savvy, and so a bunch of different students got to put their 2 cents in, and they really enjoyed that. And so these are kind of metaphoric of the comments people are making while they're eating. We told the students, just write down an idea, a thought, a wish, a prayer, or something, and we went ahead and then suspended them. So the dinner party themes, they're talking about technology. They're surrounded by all of these different gadgets and media, considering them. They still have the traditional table and chairs and bed and all that, and so on. And then we were thinking the outside of the gallery, we wanted to keep things as flexible as we could, so the inside of the gallery would be more of the apartment, and more like the world we live in every day, and the tradition. The outside of the gallery is more conceptual, and the last piece I would talk about would be the projection mapping piece. We took art pedestals from our own collection, and we created a template that would match up a video projector with these pedestals, and then we mapped on them all of these different visual things. It starts with just sort of some eye candy as these things outline the pedestals and sort of highlight their locations, and then we begin to get into words that are used to describe thought processes and thought processes as they relate to technology, such as logic, if, then, or, calculation, and so on. And then it adds other words that are more words that artists would use, such as expression and free will and those kinds of things. So it's sort of like, in a weird way, I guess it's indirectly connected to the bed. The person is dreaming, and their dream's in motion. And that's really about all I can say about those pieces.
It's a piece that uses 2 tomato cages put together using anchor wire and zip ties. It uses an Arduino in the middle to control groups of LEDs along these patches that I've added. And the interesting thing is that this piece is interactive using single solar cells located around the perimeter of the middle piece. So on these little cardboard squares, these are little solar cells. And you can see it's going at a much faster rate because I'm standing near it, my shadow is being cast on it. So it's lighting up in response to my presence. But if I step away, it calms down a little bit and goes much slower. So when there's a crowd around, it starts to react to them, and that's pretty much all there is to it. This is a cube of LEDs. If you zoom in a little bit, you can see that all of the structure that makes up this cube is actually made from the LEDs themselves. Nothing has been added or glued in or anything. It uses its own wires to support itself. So even the cabling that comes out of the top is the wires that it uses to be controlled by this Arduino board here. And if you look even closer, just about every single one of these ports was used. So it maxes out what Arduinos are physically capable of as far as how many things you can plug in. The reason why I added this to the show was that I was adding different sculptures, different animations to the LEDs themselves, and I started to realize that it took on kind of a quality of being a sculpture within a sculpture. It wasn't just a physical object, it was also a platform that you can embed other sculptures inside of. So in a way, it's kind of a recursive, contemplative idea. It's probably one of the only attempts that I've made at something artistic, just because it kind of got my thought processes going in that direction. But I really like the idea that you can represent different forms without having to change the physical form of the LED cube itself. So.
Okay.
Alright, these we call tube gardens. These are large arrays of LEDs put inside of medical tubing. The forms you see are actually cut out of plywood, or pegboard actually, with a jigsaw, and they're in proportions of Greek sculptures, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Greek forms. And on the other side of these things, there's about 400 solder joints, close to 120 LEDs on average, and one Arduino that controls all of them. What people don't get immediately when they walk in here is that all of these are actually interactive. Along each of these sculptures, there's 3 ping pong ball halves that have single solar cells inside of them called photocells. So they're able to sense differences in darkness and in light, and we use that change in data to determine whether people are trying to interact with this thing or not. So what we do is whenever people cover up a solar cell, all the LEDs will start animating away from it. So this should activate it. And sometimes the middle ones work, sometimes they don't. The funnier thing is it'll get stuck in loops that you don't realize. Like just now, I have my shadow covering it, so it thinks that one's being activated. But it'll also react whenever you shine a bright light on these things. They will do the opposite. They will have all the LEDs running towards your hand instead of away. Yeah, there's 3 of these forms. 2 of them are almost identical, and the other one is the same exact idea, just scaled down a bit. So they're all more or less interactive when you move your hands over them. These are jars of fireflies. They're an adaptation of a project that I found months and months ago online. They use a single, extremely tiny microcontroller board to control, I think, 4 LEDs inside of here. If I take one of these apart, you can actually see what goes on the inside. So literally it's just a single chip and a couple of resistors and a whole bunch of wire. That's all there is. So on that little chip there's actually a program that's only about 60 lines long that you can get on my website that pulses the LEDs in a way that kind of mimics the behavior of fireflies. It just simply fades them in and fades them out, but it randomly decides how long to fade them in, fade them out, how long to wait between fades, that kind of thing. And each of these jars are all wired up to each other, so they're all sharing the same power source. One of these, though, I built over the summer using surface mount LEDs. So you can hardly see any of the wiring or any of the LEDs themselves because they're meant to be microscopic. But it runs the exact same code as all the other ones do, but we had to do some compromising to get them done in time. So full diagrams and source code and all that, everything you could possibly want to know is at the URL. So